Perfect, thank you very much for joining me. Yes, my name is Sean and you're watching MLS Ireland does predictions for week 7. We're getting into it, we're going well, let's go. Excellent, thank you very much for joining me. Yes, my name is Sean and this is my prediction show, if you can call it that. Last week wasn't too bad, so if you're new to this, hit that subscribe button. It would mean quite a bit to me. I'm starting to pick up the subscribers again after, God knows what happened 2 weeks ago. But anyway, I think 3 or 4 left. But anyway, those things happen in this kind of world. We had a good wee week last week. LAFC getting beat by LA Galaxy in quite a good wee game. There's a couple of other interesting ones, but saying that, there was Inter Miami beat New England 3-2, which was a bit of a surprise to I think Inter Miami, to be fair. Charlotte beat Atlanta, even though Atlanta probably didn't really deserve it, but they're down a good player. Real Salt Lake drew against Toronto. Sporting Kansas City got beaten by Nashville away from home, which was a pretty good result. Houston beat, well, I suppose that's not really much. Colorado Rapids got beat by Dallas in Texas. And Houston beat that was 2 weeks ago. But anyway, yep, it's been an interesting one. Austin beat Minnesota. So there's been a good, interesting week. One that, Montreal beat New York Red Bulls, whatever the hell happened there as well. Oh yeah, goalkeeper made a mistake. Anyway, may as well crack on with the first game, which is Montreal, because you don't really want to be listening to me a lot. Just the most important bits. Anyway, Montreal against Vancouver. This is a wee Canadian kind of derby. They're quite a bit away from each other, but funny thing, when I do my week, where the place where I get the stats, they're kind of underneath a wee American flag. But anyway, that's a little bit of funniness to me. Anyway, so Vancouver against Montreal, two teams near to the bottom. Montreal probably getting a wee bit better of the run. Vancouver only 1-1 this season now at home against Sporting Kansas City. Their away record is non-existent. Scored 2 goals, not great. They're coming up against a Montreal team who's starting now to kick in. They haven't won. They've only scored the 1 game at home. Granted, out of the last 6, they've only played the 1 at home. Anyway, so this is their first home game back after getting beat by Philadelphia 2-1. So their home record, if you go by this kind of shit, isn't great. But anyway, against Vancouver, you would suspect them to win this one. So I went for a 2-1 win. It's going to be one of those weird games, isn't it? So yeah. The next one is San Jose Earthquakes against Nashville. Now, San Jose, who are bottom, haven't won a game. Granted, they have scored 9 goals, but they conceded 15. So their goal scoring record isn't too bad, but their conceding isn't great. They're coming up against a good Nashville team who are now starting to pick up a bit of form. Beating Sporting Kansas City and Columbus Crew away from home. Granted, all their games are away from home until probably a couple of weeks' time, I think. So they're coming up against this Kansas City team. You would suspect them to win, and I do. So I'm going to go for a 2-1 win to Nashville, just for the fact is that they are starting now to pick up a few things. San Jose Earthquakes are not really that great this season, and they could get relegated, so not looking good. The next one is Atlanta against Cincinnati. Cincinnati, who are in the 6 games, first 2 got beat. Won 2 games against Florida teams and then got beat. So now they're coming up against an Atlanta team who got beaten there during the week against Charlotte, which isn't a great result, but Guzan getting beat by, I think it was Guzan, getting beat by a corner, which shouldn't really be happening, but anyway, it happens. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw in this one, and 2 teams are probably capable of scoring and capable of conceding as well, but it could be a 2-2, but I'm going to go for a 1-1 just to think these 2 teams possibly will cancel each other out. So there you go. The next one is Houston and Dynamo against Portland Timbers. Now, Portland Timbers away from home again have an okay record. They've lost 1, they drew 1, and then they've beaten Vancouver 3-2 last week, which is a pretty good result, all things considered, and it being Portland. They're coming up against a Houston Dynamo team who are now starting to pick up. They beat San Jose Earthquakes, beat Inter Miami. Not really great results, but and they beat Vancouver, and they're not too bad at home. Portland Timbers away from home are still a wee bit dodgy. Well, Portland Timbers are still a wee bit dodgy, so I went for like a 2-1 win. Houston should possibly win this one quite. It's going to be a tough game, and this game could go either way, but I think Houston at home will concede, but they should probably get this one over the line, so I'm going to go for 2-1 on that one. The next one is New York Red Bulls against FC Dallas. Dallas, would you be surprised, are 6th in the league. They beat Colorado, Portland, Nashville all at home, drew against Chicago, so their away record isn't great. So they're coming up against the New York Red Bulls team, who are awful at home. They haven't won a game yet at home, and all their away games they've won. So this one's going to be an interesting one. I think just for the fact is that Dallas are kind of on an up. I think they could possibly win this one. I went for 2-1 win to FC Dallas, just for the fact is New York Red Bulls haven't won a game at home. They're probably due, but I think after last week's debacle, I don't think it's happening. So I'm going to go for 2-1. The next one is Columbus Crew against Orlando. Now, Columbus Crew started off the season quite well, and then they lost their last 2 games against Philadelphia and Nashville, which isn't too bad when you think about it. But they're coming up against a Orlando team who beat Chicago Fire, but got beaten at home against LAFC 4-2. But now they're away. Their last away game was against Portland, so that was a 1-1, which isn't too bad. And I'm suspecting it could be the same. So I went for another 1-1. Columbus Crew 1, Orlando 1. Just 2 teams are neck and neck at the moment. I don't see these 2 teams really. There's nothing that I see out of the 2 teams that make me think that there's a winner. If you know what I mean. They got 2 good strikers, aging strikers to be fair, and they got a good midfield and a good defense. So that's what I'm going to go for a 1-0. The next one is DC United against Austin FC. Now, Austin are starting off the season quite well. They've only lost to 1, and that was against Portland away. This game's against DC United, who are not doing all that great. They're 21st. They've won their first 2 games at the start of the season, which is pretty impressive. And then they got beaten by Chicago, Toronto, and then Atlanta, which isn't that great. So they're coming against a good Austin team who haven't won away yet this season. So it's going to be a trickier one. But I'm going to think they're going to have their momentum behind them after a good, solid win against Minnesota. So I'm going to go for like a 2-1 win to Austin. DC United are going to be struggling, and I think probably selling players isn't a great idea for them, selling Paul Arola. But anyway, I digress. The next one is New England Revolution against Charlotte. Last season, this would have been, this is what's happening. With New England out of the Cup, out of the Champions League, you would think now they're starting to pick up a couple of results. Didn't. They got beaten by Inter and New York Red Bulls. They're not looking all that great, but they're coming up against a Charlotte team who beat Atlanta last week, but that was at home. So they have a very good home record, but a very poor away record. Only scoring 1. They've only scored the 1 away from home, so that's pretty not great. But that was against Atlanta. They got beaten by Philadelphia the last time. So I'm going to go for a New England 2-0 win against Charlotte. Sorry, Charlotte, but I think New England are going to start now to knuckle down and try to get a couple of new results because they really need it. And this is probably where it's going to be beneficiary for them to basically knock you out. The next one is Toronto against Philadelphia. Philadelphia, who are top of the league, drew the 1 and then won basically the rest of them, which is against good teams. I'm not going to say great teams. The big Columbus Crew, who are down mid-table. Charlotte, mid-table. New York City, near the bottom. San Jose Earthquakes at the bottom. And then Montreal, who are near the bottom. So they haven't really beaten anybody yet. Now they're coming up against a Toronto team who are near the bottom. So I'm going to go for like a 2-1 win to Philadelphia, just for the fact that Philadelphia are a good team. But once they start picking up against a team like, God knows, Orlando possibly, because the rest of them are all in the East and the West, so Philadelphia probably should win this one 2-1. So the next one is Chicago Fire against LA Galaxy. LA Galaxy beaten LAFC 2-1, which was a pretty good result, and they were 2-0 up, and then they took Chicharito off, and then they conceded the goal, which is quite, I don't know, weird. And now they're coming up against the Chicago team, who are at home okay. They've won 1, drew 2, lost 1. And no, that was away. Dejan. At home, sorry, they won 1 and drew 2. Forgive me. Should be an interesting one. I went for an LA Galaxy 1-0 win. I think Chicago Fire still don't know how to get Shaqiri into the team. So I think they're still finding their feet. There is time for them to get into the playoffs. I do think they have the capabilities to get into the playoffs. They only conceded 2, but they only scored 5. So that's, in MLS, it's not that great. You need to start scoring goals in MLS to really get far. So I'm going to go for like a 1-1 to LA Galaxy. The next one is Minnesota against Colorado Rapids. Now, at the start of the season, you would have suspected Colorado Rapids to probably win this quite easily. They played in the Champions League, then they dropped off quite convincingly. After that, actually, because they were doing all right in the Champions League and they were doing all right in the league, and then they just went down. But anyway, they're coming up against the Minnesota team, a solid Minnesota team who have this season drew 2, won 2, then lost 2 in that order, which is pretty impressive. They got beaten by Austin and Seattle. Not convincingly great because the two teams are below them. And the next one, then they beat San Jose Earthquakes and Red Bull. A good result against Red Bull, a suspected win against Earthquakes, and they drew against Nashville and Philadelphia at the start of the season. So I actually did go for like a 1, but I'm going to go for like a 2-0 win to Minnesota, just because I do think they're actually capable of scoring in this game. When I just look at it now, they've only scored 5 this season and conceded 5, but I'm still going to stick with a 2-0 win. I'm going to go for 2. It could possibly be 1, but I do think they're going to win this one. So I'm going to go for like a 2-0. The next one's Seattle Sounders against Inter Miami. Now, Seattle Sounders beat, on aggregate, New York City into the Champions League final. Congratulations to them, Seattle. They're coming up against an Inter Miami team who won their first game of the season last week against New England, which was needed. Desperately needed. So, but anyway, I think Seattle Sounders should probably win this one. I went for like a 3-0. It's going to happen. Seattle are good. Just too good for them. And that's what's going to happen. The next one is New York City FC against Real Salt Lake. Now, New York City are only won the one game. They got, as I said, they got kicked out of the Champions League. Coming against a Real Salt Lake team who are 4th in the league, which is pretty impressive. They started the season out quite well, but then they kind of derailed halfway through that out of their 7 games. So their away record is okay. 1-1, lost 1, drew 1, and now they're coming up against the New York City team. I'm going to go for like a 1-1. Two teams are probably well matched for each other. New York City aren't really where they should be, and Real Salt Lake aren't really where, to be fair, aren't really where they should be as well. So I'm going to go for like a 1-0. And now the last one is LAFC against Sporting Kansas City. LAFC are doing very well. They, as I said, they lost their first game of the season. That was against LA Galaxy, which is no mean feat, to be fair. And then they're coming up against the Sporting Kansas City team, who've only won the 2. Both were at home. Their away record hasn't been great, only scoring the 1 goal, which is not a good look for them. Conceding 11 and only scoring the 5 as well. Whereas, when you think about it, LAFC scored 14 and conceded 6. So that's the cracks. And so I'm going to go for like a 2-0 win to LAFC, just for the fact is they're a far better team. Sporting Kansas City don't really know what they're doing at the moment, and they really do need a good midfield. So those were my predictions. I hope you enjoyed them. I hope to God they do very well, not like last week. And I hope to see you on the next week. Toodaloo. Bye.